Yo, yo, yo. What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to Rob the Mic. My name is Rob Carmona, and this is episode 12. So, it's been kind of a wild week since I've seen you guys. And I was hoping that it wouldn't be. I was kind of hoping that it would be chill and I would have all these amazing positive things to share. And dude, it really hasn't been like that. I don't know what the fuck's going on. And I was talking to a friend of mine about it. And she's like, oh, dude, it's the fucking retrograde. It's this. And I'm like, God damn it. Here we go. Fucking stars, universe, and fuck it with me. Fuck it with all of us, dude. And on that same note, I've been talking to multiple friends about what's been going on and kind of what's been going on with them too. And I feel like everyone's in this weird place of an energy shift. Something's taking place or multiple events are taking place that are kind of causing people to step back and be like, yo, why is everything super fucking hectic right now? And so I don't feel alone, and you guys aren't alone. I hope you don't feel alone, because I'm here. I'm also feeling it, going through it. A majority of people that I know are also feeling it in some sort of way. So it's okay. We're going to get through it. But what I do want to talk to you guys about is essentially the last week and where it kind of led me and the focus of today's podcast. So the focus of today's podcast is going to be regarding unresolved traumas and things like that. And I know it sounds kind of weird, and it's like, wait, why are we going to jump into that? So there's a reason for that. We'll start with last week. I'll kind of work my way over the weekend a little bit just to give you guys a little bit of a prefix, I guess you can say, or precursor. I don't know what the word is. It's fine. Everything's fine. You know what I'm trying to say. So Friday, it kind of all started for me on Friday. I woke up, I was feeling good. A buddy of mine had posted a really good song on Instagram. So I connected my phone to my speaker and I was just kind of starting my day, getting up, and I was like, cool, okay, jams, I was vibing, it's all good. My phone goes off, and it was my uncle. And for those of you guys who've been listening to the podcast, there's an uncle that I've been talking about who's dealing with cancer right now. And he had it for a period of time, and it was located in the prostate, which for men is a very, very severe form of cancer. And usually when it hits that area, unless they catch it very, very early, it's really hard to make it through it. So it becomes very, very intense, and it acts very, very fast. So he had that surgery, went through it, and technically was cancer free for a couple months. Fast forward to Friday, well, a little bit before Friday, he's kind of been feeling some pains and going through the motions of it. So he went to the doctor, been getting checked out. And then we'll fast forward to Friday. So Friday, he calls me up and he's like, hey, I need to talk to you. Are you busy? And I was like, no. I said, what's up? And he's like, hey, they're going to start me on chemo. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, when? He's like, right now. So he had called me when he had just got to the hospital. And nobody was expecting that. I wasn't expecting it at all. So when I got the call, I was super fucking shook about it. And it fucked me up, super bad, in the worst possible way. And when I told my mom, that was something really difficult for the both of us, right? Because then I'm trying to stay as strong and as tough and as held together as I can, because we both need it. I have to be strong, but I can't always be that way, right? And then when I saw my mom break about it, not that I don't cry, because we'll also get into that too, but it breaks me when I see the people that I love in pain, in any sort of pain, anything. If I have a friend in front of me or family and I love you and you start talking to me about something, literally anything, you get emotional, I'm immediately going to be there with you. I'm 100%. You're bawling out, I'm going to be fucking losing my shit too. Tears everywhere. And for the people who know me, who are watching this, and those of you who are also listening, you know that. I'm a very, very emotional person. 110,000%. Give me a hug the right way for a certain amount of time, and I will for sure probably end up in tears. It's one of those things. And because of everything that's been going on within my life, within my I guess you can say my solar system, everything's affecting me a certain way. So when this hit, I was like, oh shit, man. Like, what the fuck? It felt like my whole world like just shifted. It didn't go upside down, but it shifted in a way that I wasn't ready for, because it struck me out of nowhere. So I was dealing with that. On Saturday, I kind of run into a situation regarding my ex. And then that broke me into fucking 60 billion pieces. Like, I was a wreck. So I was bouncing between like family, personal the entire weekend, and just going through it. It was really, really ugly. And it was hard, especially on Saturday, because I felt super alone. And granted, I know I'm not. Like, I know I'm not alone. I know I have my friends and I have my family to support me through anything that I need. And granted, shouts to Jay on Saturday night. And you guys have heard me talk about Jay. So I feel like you guys are starting to get to know the people that are in my ecosystem, right? So I was talking to Jay on Saturday night, and I'm super fucking thankful for him, because he was able to calm me down and bring me to a place of, I'm not going to say full like calmness, but he was able to kind of talk me down and just keep me okay and bring me back to a level state. So shouts to him for that. And I've been kind of just dealing with it in like different ways. Like, some days are cool, some days are really bad. And the past few days, again, have been really hard. Like, yesterday was probably the first day since Friday that I didn't cry, because I was fucking going through it, man. Again, for multiple reasons. And with both of those things, right? Like with the cancer shit, like it brought up stuff, like some shit with like family, I can say. So it's like, that's tough, and it's getting tougher. And then the personal stuff is also getting tougher in some ways. And I would start spiraling with all those things, and I'd start thinking one thing that would lead to another. And you guys know how it goes. You know how it is when it comes to spiraling. And I'm sure a lot of you are like, as I'm saying it, you're probably sitting there like, yep. I know that. Yep. Mm-hmm. So it hits home a different way. But throughout the process, I'm trying to keep myself on level ground. And what hit me on Sunday, which is kind of what led me to today's podcast. On Sunday, I was like, you know what? I need to do a deep dive. I need to do some heavy self-work today. I don't know what it is that I need, but I need to start doing some heavy self-work today. Not that I haven't been doing it, because I do try to like water those plants, right, in my life, which is taking care of myself, putting my health, all those things that I need, and just, watering it every now and then. So on Sunday, I was like, this is it. This is my day of self-work. I woke up, made some breakfast, was feeling good. And I went on it. I was like, fuck it. Here we go. This is it. This is it for me. This is what I got to do. And I ended up on YouTube. There I was. I said, cool, let's dive. So I was on Jay Shetty's podcast, and I started with a talk that he did with Kevin Hart, which was phenomenal. And I was kind of holding off on watching it, because not that I didn't want to see it, but I didn't think I'd be able to pull anything from it. And it's weird, because with a lot of stuff regarding self-work, you might think certain videos might not help you, or certain things might not work out, but it's for you. So check it out. Like, don't just shy away from it because you think it might not be anything, because there might be something in there. And the gems that I was able to pull from that were very, very helpful. And then from there, it led me onto another podcast. And I'm watching these podcasts just so you guys can know, or get an insight of like where I was, right? Because I was watching this on YouTube. But you can also listen to them too if you go to Jay Shetty's podcast. Like on Spotify, it's available everywhere. So he did another one with Big Sean. Well, he's actually done two with Big Sean, and the second one is the one that I watched. Dude, that podcast was crazy. Crazy. It's maybe like a little over an hour. And I kid you not, maybe it was just myself, because I got so wrapped up in it. I was so wrapped in it that it felt like I was watching it for hours. It felt like, but not in a bad way, right? It's not like I was sitting there and it's like, oh, it felt so long. Like, it felt so long in a good way. Like I just dove into it, and I was so in it in what they were saying. And I was able to resonate, with a lot of it. a lot of it that I was not expecting. Because again, I didn't know what I was looking for. I was just bouncing about shit, trying to see what's going on. So they kind of led me down another path because with the Big Sean podcast, they go over so many different things, dude, from just like life experiences. And they start talking about like spirituality, self-worth, self-love, all these things, love with your partner, how to express yourself in healthy ways, how to build healthy relationships and things like that. And again, I wasn't searching for like any sort of relationship advice or anything like that, but it transformed into this weird thing. But I noticed as I was watching it, I wasn't really open to it because I didn't want to hear that shit at the time. But I'm like, dude, just stop, take a breath, listen to what these guys are saying, because the conversation is it. You're in it. You've dove into the deep side. Just float in it, you know? So as I'm floating in it, I'm just listening. And I'm like, damn, this shit's heavy. Like, I fuck with it. And it was helping me in ways between what both of them were saying. So as I'm going through it, it kind of led me down another path. So then I ended up on this guy, Matt Hussey's page, and he gives a lot more like love, relationship, those types of tips. So when I was on his, something had popped up, and there was a talk that he did with Martha Higareda, she's like a producer, and she does all kinds of like movies and stuff for Latin America, and she's very, very well known. And I mean, she's been in movies as well, so I guess she's also an actor, and she's just an incredible human. But I had never heard her speak about certain things. Like I've seen her in interviews, but I've never heard her talk about anything regarding life or anything like that. So when I heard her talk with Matt Hussey, it's very, very short, the clip that they show, because he has like a paid program type of thing that you can go in and watch certain things like through an app. And I mean, I don't have it myself personally. Would I recommend to get it? I'm not 100% sure, but I would assume that it's great because the talks that he gives and everything that he's about is very fucking empowering in multiple ways. So when I heard him talking to her and I was listening to what they were talking about, I was like, dude, this is nuts. Because I don't know if it's what I need, but it's really calling to me right now. This bit of information is really, really calling to me right now. So then that led me to the last thing, which is how we come to this podcast. And the last thing that I saw was that she was on a podcast with her partner now, which is Lewis Howes. And he has a podcast by the name of The School of Greatness. And I know you guys, like, as I'm probably saying some of this stuff, you guys are like, dude, I thought you didn't listen to podcasts. And the thing is, I don't. But there's certain ones that I will watch. Like, I'm big on watching it. Like, listening to certain people talk, I can kind of do it. But I'm definitely more of a visual person. That's kind of what my life revolves around. Like, my memory is very visually driven. I can remember things. I remember faces, conversations, all of it. Like, the memory of an elephant. So I watch these things because it hits home a lot harder because I'm watching their reactions and how all these things are coming about. So when I was watching theirs, I finished it yesterday and it was crazy. It was a crazy, crazy episode because the amount of work that they've both done to put themselves in the situation that they're in now, both with the love that they have for themselves individually, and then the fact that it created such a healthy thing for the two of them, it blew me away. Because I'm trying to learn and give myself the tools and pick up the tools from both the self-work and therapy so that I can be a better version of myself, not just for me, right? But for someone that I end up in a relationship with. And so I know how to navigate when things get rough, when I understand how to express myself in a healthy way, how to create that sort of environment, which I know I've spoken to you guys about before as well, right? Like how important it is to create these environments where that you can feel safe. You feel like you can express yourself with your partner, because sometimes when things get heated, we all know, we've all fucking been there. Or maybe not all of us, but quite a few of us have. shit gets out of control. Someone says one thing that leads to another. All of a sudden it's this downward spiral and it's all bad. And it's bigger than just walking away and taking a breath, which granted, a lot of the times that shit needs to happen. But there's also other ways that conversations can be approached, certain boundaries that can be set, certain things between you and your partner, like steps that you guys can take together to show you where you should be and why you should be there. So as I was listening to all these talks, the thing that got me that she was talking about was unresolved traumas. And there's 5 things that she talks about. And for myself personally, I never thought about it that way, nor did I think about how these 5 traumas have affected me personally. And then of course I started thinking about how they affect me personally, how things were in my last relationship, how they affected my partner. And it broke me down like pretty heavy, because I went into this really wild spiral, not necessarily negative. I can't say it was a negative thing, because I don't think it was, but it did have me thinking. And I didn't feel horrible, but I started to think really outside of myself. And I think that's kind of what made me, it made me very, I'm trying to think of the word that I need to say, but not that I wasn't self-aware, but I've definitely become a lot more self-aware. And as I was processing this information that was being given to me, that self-awareness kind of heightened. And it was weird because I felt like I became self-aware in the past because I was thinking about shit that had happened, but with my mindset right now. And I think that's why it was affecting me so heavy. But at the same time, I was like, dude, if it's affecting me like this, and I feel passionate about this, it's something that I want to share with you guys. And I don't know how long this is going to be. I mean, who knows, right? These podcasts, they go all over the place. Sometimes they're 3 hours, sometimes they're a fucking hour. Who the fuck knows? But I do my best to just give you guys the information, as much information as I can. And I never want you guys to leave with questions or to say, I mean, if you do have questions, I want you guys to be able to ask me. And thankfully, the space that we've created here on this podcast, you guys have felt very confident and very, very safe. And I appreciate that. And that's, again, it goes back to what I was just talking about, right? Like, it's not just with your relationship. Your relationship goes further than that. It's your relationship with friends, family, all this stuff. It's creating this beautiful space that you can say, hey, this is what the fuck's going on. And this is why this type of shit happens. XYZ. Let's talk about it. Because again, I've had really intimate conversations with friends that have sparked from conversations that I've had on here with you guys. So again, when she was speaking about these 5 things, I immediately grabbed my MacBook and I'm just like, notes. And I started typing, going nuts, because it hit home. It hit home. I was like, yo, all of this shit is amazing. And I know that you guys could probably take from it too. So the traumas that she was talking about, which basically she classified them as like inner child wounds. And I didn't fully understand until the very end. And I mean, as she was talking about it, I started understanding more about the very end. I was like, oh, damn, this is wild. And the first one that she talks about is rejection, and how it's something that we all have. We have all faced rejection in some way. And usually the first time that we experience it is like when we're kids with our families, with our moms, our dads, however, aunts, uncles, something, because someone at some point told you no for the first time, when you were able to comprehend what no meant. And for the most part, we all kind of wilded out when that shit happened, because it's like, wait, what do you mean no? Like, I want some fucking mac and cheese. What do you mean no? I want this toy. What do you mean no? Like, go to bed. No. Like, or something like that. Just you go and cut into these realms. Like, I want to stay up. No, go your ass to bed. Oh shit, what do you mean no? This is crazy. So it can start with something like that. And then you kind of hold on to it depending on how much that rejection has affected you from your childhood up to your adulthood, because rejection can come in many forms, right? It's not just no. It could be not getting the job as an adult. It could be your friends making fun of you in some way. It could be you end up in a situation and all of a sudden you just feel this sense of rejection because maybe your homies left you. Maybe you were somewhere and they dipped out. So you feel left behind. You feel rejected. You feel all this shit. So as she was talking about it, I was like, dude, I never thought about any of this. And not that I don't know that stuff that happened when you were a kid can affect you as an adult, because obviously we, for the most part, a majority of us do know that, right? Like childhood traumas and stuff and how important they are. But when you get down to the smallest of factors, for example, the first time you hear no and how often you have heard that throughout your life, some of us will have experienced rejection more than others for various reasons. And that rejection can put you in a really bad spot later on. So whether you've experienced it again with love, with work, like professionally, anything like that, those types of things can affect you super heavy. So as I was listening to it, I was kind of thinking about my own rejections and the stuff that I've dealt with from when I was a kid up until my adulthood. And those things have really fucked me up bad, like super, super bad. And I mean, I can recall a lot from my childhood, like very, very early on, but more so in my adult life, I'd say maybe even the last 10 years, the moments of rejection that I've faced are moments of rejection that I will never forget in my entire life, because those things scarred me 110,000%. And I don't want to get into it too wild on here because I feel like I can go on about that for a long time, but I think it's something that we all need to consider if we haven't already considered it. Because again, the factor of rejection, we all deal with it differently and it affects us differently. Some people carry it more than others, and some people can kind of walk over it more than others. It's not about being strong or being weak or anything like that. It's just, it's the way, it's the cards that we're dealt and how we choose to play that hand, right? And the next one that she jumped into after that was abandonment. And dude, the abandonment one was wild too, because it can go anywhere. It can lead from anything. And with the level of abandonment that we've felt, like, to give you an example, this is the example that she gave. And I was like, oh shit, well, that was my situation. And the situation was that your parent, like, let's say your parents are married, right? So for mine, my parents were married when I was born. And my dad had cheated on my mom. And it was a whole fucking thing. But my mom took me, left, and she was a single parent. So for me, that sort of abandonment was very, very heavy for me. And I knew it affected me. It's always been there. I've always carried it. It's always been around. But when you realize that sort of that something like that, how it affects you throughout your life, and the fact that it's sprinkled in so many ways throughout so many different things, it's really, really tough to bear it, because you're doing your best to kind of stomach, see what's going down and why it's going down that way. But those sorts of things you do your best as an adult to deal with them. And I've done my best as an adult to deal with it, because I don't fully know how. And that's why I'm in therapy. That's why I'm doing the self-work, because I'm trying to figure it out. And I know that these things affect me in different ways. So that's an example of abandonment. There's another thing where it's like, how, like, one thing that she mentioned and that I'm like looking at right now from my notes is how when people suffer from this, they can become dependent and they feel like they need someone and they can never be alone. And I know even as I said that, some of you are probably like, oh shit, whether it's for yourself or somebody that you know. And as soon as she said that, dude, it's really fucking wild. Really, really wild. So we're going to stop this recording and I will be right back. Okay, so we are back with part two. Wasn't intending on stopping that. I will fill you guys in on why I had to stop. So I had to stop recording because my uncle showed up, the one that I was just talking to you guys about, that's dealing with cancer, and he wanted to sit my grandma down and tell her. So that was very interesting, very, very interesting. But this is crazy. Now that I'm like just jumping back into this shit, I'm gonna do my best. And please bear with me, and thank you guys for sticking around for this. Thank you, I appreciate it. It went a lot better than I thought, and I think a lot of it is because she understands what the fuck's going on, but like she also doesn't fully understand. Like she doesn't grasp a lot of things. So not that it kind of goes over her head, but it kind of does in a way. So it like softens the blow with certain situations. So this was a very prime situation for that. So like, cause she gets it and she's like, oh, everything's going to be okay. And then we're just kind of like, okay, I guess. Okay. She's taking it a lot better than we all expected. Or again, maybe she doesn't fully understand, or maybe it'll set in later. Who knows? Sometimes that shit happens, right? Like you're in shock. Someone tells you something and you're like, okay, everything's fine. And then later out of nowhere, it just kind of hits you, which is kind of what happened the first time that he told me. That day, it was super random. Of course, he was just like, hey, I need to talk to you. It's like, okay. And this was prior to this, like his first round with like fighting cancer. But when he told me, I had just kind of been going about my day, and I was super busy that day. And then that night I had gone to go eat. And as I sat down after ordering the food from the takeout place. And I was like, I have to go outside. And I went outside and I just like broke into a million pieces. Cause for whatever fucking reason at that moment, something had triggered something and I lost it. So who knows, maybe that'll be her state at some point. But overall, yeah. So that's why I had to stop. So again, thank you guys for being so cooperative and understanding. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to try my best to pick up where I left off. And I know the last thing that I was talking about is when Martha was talking about when people who suffer from the whole like abandonment issue, right? So like people who suffer from this often become dependent and they feel like they need someone and that they can never be alone. And I remember saying to you guys, like, I know the moment that I said that, it was going to hit for either yourself or someone that you know. And that specific subject of abandonment, that was a really big part of my last relationship, especially because I saw it, I felt it, and I went through it. And I know it was something that she was battling with and that she continues to battle with. And for myself, that's something that I continued to battle with. And for multiple reasons, right? Whether it was like stuff from my childhood or even feeling certain things within the relationship. So again, for me, it's always going to go back to having that sort of openness, that sense of communication, that sort of creating that safe space so that you don't feel these things. And if you do, how important it is to correct that kind of shit. Because when you become dependent on someone, it's very, very dangerous because you start to base your life, your self-worth, all of these things on this person. So if this person abandons you, you feel like they're going to leave you, or you feel like you're letting them down, something's always going to trigger you and you're always going to be upset and feel some sort of way and on the defense. And what does that type of shit do to you? Because you're on defense, it leaves you very, as I just said, defensive, right? You're on defense. You're ready to fight. You're ready to go at all times for anything. Any little thing can trigger you because you're constantly like this. Your fists are always up and you're ready to go because you're scared. You're scared. You're so dependent on the situation, on the person, that if any little thing goes to disturb that riff, it's going to cause a massive earthquake. So this was something that, as Martha was talking about it, again, thinking about it from the child perspective up to being an adult, you realize how important it is to heal these wounds. And the thing is, you guys, what's very important, very, very important about all this stuff, and I want you to all remember this as I talk about it. When I talk about healing it, I don't mean going to therapy or talking to someone and that you deal with it and it's over. Because that's not the process. That's not the healing process. You will heal for the rest of your life. But the thing is being active about it and recognizing it and understanding and sitting with it, because you will constantly grow. As people, we constantly grow, we constantly change. And those things, all those perspectives that start to shift, they affect you, right? And they're going to affect how you're taking things and information later on. Because again, we will heal through this for the rest of our lives. You will. There's no one thing that says you can go deal with it for a couple weeks. Oh yeah, in a month you'll be better. I don't know. For some people it will. Honestly, it's different for everyone. Some people can heal in a faster amount of time, and that's fucking great if you can. Like, shouts to you, hats off to that. But for a majority of people, I would say healing from things like this, for example, this specific one, right? The abandonment wound. If you're going to therapy, doing self-work on it, you could be working on it slowly for the rest of your life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a beautiful thing. And the biggest thing about that is if you are in a relationship, specifically if you are in a relationship, that your partner understands that and that they're there for you in that. Because when you're willing to heal, and let's say they're not willing to heal, it creates a rift as well. Because one person will start to grow and the other person is kind of staying on the ground level, right? Like the way I see it and the things I like to compare it to, because I had this conversation recently with somebody, is I feel like it's like you're climbing a mountain, but you're doing it like free climbing. I feel like that's what the process is like. And the reason why I say free climbing is because, dude, when you fall, when you're climbing through this process of self-help therapy, when you fall, you feel like you fell off of a fucking mountain. And it's enough to take the wind out of you wherever you fall from. And sometimes when you fall, like you break every bone on the way down, and it fucks you up. And it takes time so that you can kind of recoup, heal, get back up, and then start to climb again. But what I notice is when you're in the relationship, it's hard, right? Because if the person that you're supposed to climb with is constantly on the ground, eventually, let's say they're like cheering for you or they're just kind of waiting for you, you're eventually going to lose sight of that person because you won't be able to look back and see them there. But if the person is willing to climb with you, and they don't necessarily need to coach you, because you have to be able to coach yourself. It's very fucking important. And that's something that I've learned throughout this process, is like, it's you. And I know I've mentioned this before, right? Like, no matter if you're in a relationship or not, you are constantly by yourself. You go to sleep with yourself. Everything is, you're in your own mind. Nobody's there with you. It's just you. So you got to be able to fight this journey in yourself, like on your own. But having a partner that is supportive of this journey that you're on is very imperative in this journey when you are with somebody. Because if the person isn't understanding, isn't loving, isn't caring, isn't nurturing in that way, then it's not going to help you, because that's what you need. You need that sort of support. And whether, for a lot of us, whether we get it from friends, from family, from anywhere, maybe for some people, even coworkers, anything like that, someone who you've opened up to, that sort of support, as widespread as it can be, is amazing. But when you are in a relationship, that one person is who you look for, right? Because you want that person. That's the first person you're going to call when shit goes down. It's the first person you're going to call when things are happy, when you have a breakthrough, when something, anything like that. You always have somebody you want to call. So it's important for them to be there. And the thing is, too, they can also heal on the journey with you, because maybe you can bring back insightful things. And I mean, that's a lot of what this podcast is, too, because as I'm going, it's kind of cool in that sense. And even with this shit that we're talking about right now, you guys, like, as I'm going through my healing process and as I do this on a daily basis, I can break shit down and I can share it with you guys. And granted, yes, it's like a shifted perspective because it's for me, right? And I'm giving you the way that I'm processing it and the way that it's affecting me. But at the same time, I feel like with the way that I can process the information and kind of give it back to you guys, for some of you, is very helpful. And that's beautiful. For me, that's what I want. That's what this is. This whole podcast, like, yes, again, is very selfish. It's about me. It's about my life. It's about the people in it. But it's in service because it's how I can share that stuff to help y'all or to enlighten you or to make you laugh or something. Because that's what this is about, especially when it comes to stuff like this, the sort of self-help, therapy, mental health and wellness. That's what this is about. It's about the widespread help. It's about spreading a message. I don't fully know what that message is, but I do know that a part of it is to help yourself and to love yourself and to give yourself this sort of self-worth that nobody can take from you, whether you're in a relationship or not. And it happens. I'm not talking about just romantic either, you guys. Like, that's something I really want to get across here, is it can also go through with your friendships too. Because the same way relationships can be toxic, friendships can be toxic too. Same thing with family. Families can be super toxic, as a lot of y'all know. So it's kind of learning how to deal with all of these things. But the biggest part of it, and the common denominator that we will all share, right, in our ecosystem, is that we are the center of it. So if we are not good, there's no way that we're going to be able to handle anything. But as long as we can stay on a level ground and keep ourselves there, feel grounded at all times, and take the steps so that we can constantly feel that way, then you're good. You're good. So again, I think that sort of dependency in regards to abandonment is very, very dangerous. So if it's something that you're dealing with right now, be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself, because with time, it's going to slowly fade out. It'll slowly fade out, and you're going to realize, like, okay, cool. Yeah, like, I'm good. Everything's good. And you're going to have your episodes, right? Sometimes it'll be easier. Sometimes it'll be harder. But the recognition of that is very important. And that you say, oh, damn, this, I didn't realize that I do that. Or, ooh, I didn't realize when my partner says this, it affects me this way because of this. And it's constantly trying to recognize that root cause. And once you have that root cause, it gives you something to kind of run off of. And that's really important. So the next thing that she talks about is humiliation. Sorry, I had to get a drink of water. So humiliation is a huge one, because the same thing that, like, when she talks about rejection, humiliation can start from when you're a kid all the way up into your adulthood. And humiliating can be anything, it can be from the smallest thing in a one-to-one interaction, or it could be you versus a crowd of people type of humiliation. Like, it's so different. It's so different the way we experience it. But we experience it from such a young age that some of us, it's not that you grow a thicker skin, but you kind of do, depending on the situation. But it doesn't always add up to something good, because just because you can take it doesn't mean that you should take it. And being humiliated is a really fucked up thing, because for most of us, we remember that. We remember what it is and what it felt like to be humiliated. Again, whether it was in front of one person or if it was in front of 50 people, 100 people, or 1,000 people, we know what it is to be humiliated. And again, for myself, as I was talking about earlier, in my adult life, more so in the recent adult life, dude, I remember being humiliated, whether it was in front of my partner or it was in front of friends during school, like in art school. Like, I remember certain times just feeling like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. That didn't just happen. Like, I felt humiliated and just super small. And when you do have moments like that, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about, you spiral, but not just like a regular spiral. You start to think about all these other times that you were humiliated, and you could go back to when you were fucking 5 years old. I don't know. Like, it's different for everyone, but you will do that and you stack it. And all of a sudden it goes from like this single incident that's like on a disc in this fucking set to all of a sudden you're just like stacking these moments of humiliation until it's like, it's so high stacked up and you're like, what the fuck is happening? It's like a tower of Jenga, right? You have your single block and then all of a sudden you start stacking all of these other things to make this tower of humiliation. So not only are you dealing with how you were just humiliated, but now you're thinking and you're processing all these other moments of humiliation. And that's a really fucked up thing to do to yourself. And we as humans, especially those of us who overthink and things like that, it's supernatural. We're used to that. And it's like a self-sabotaging thing, because you're like, all right, how do I beat myself when I'm down? And it sounds crazy even saying it out loud, because you're like, wait, why the fuck would you do that? But there's also some of you listening that are probably like, and watching, who are like, that's exactly what I do. I beat myself when I'm down. And that can go into a whole other subject, right? But focusing with this, I think that kind of, it puts it into perspective in some sort of way. So something that we deal with, and it's something that we have to process, but it starts somewhere. And it's understanding that that subject of humiliation isn't necessarily, it's not stemming from you, which is really important to remember. A lot of the times, even if, let's say, you embarrass yourself or something like that, it doesn't necessarily line up all the time with being humiliated. It can, of course. I'm not going to say it doesn't ever happen, because it can. But sometimes, let's say you are humiliated, that can be coming from someone else. Because let's say somebody else initiated that moment. And maybe they are super insecure. Maybe they went through something really traumatic, and then they felt like, oh, this is a moment. I just need to say this, or I need to do this. I need to put this person on the spot. And it makes them feel better. Obviously, it's something that you're going to turn around and feel like shit, because you're like, dude, I was humiliated when you said that. Why did you have to say that? And this other person's like, well, whatever. Fuck you. I said it. So you have to realize, again, that a lot of these things that we deal with, they don't necessarily, sometimes they come from places that we don't realize. Same thing, it's like with like bullying, right? Like there's obviously a reason why the bully is the way that the bully is. Like their traumas come from somewhere, and that's why they're taking it out on another person or acting like that with another person. So it's very important to remember that within this subject. And the next thing that she talks about is betrayal. And betrayal is another big one too, right? Because that, I feel like it can go hand in hand with like abandonment, but being betrayed is insane. And for the most part, I don't like to say it, but I would also, like, in a sense, like, I like to say that we've all experienced some sort of betrayal in our life, whether it be from family, friends, professional, anything. You've experienced some sort of betrayal, and that it's shit. That sort of feeling is shit. Like for myself, even going to this past weekend, like I felt a sense of betrayal with some information that I found out. And I went through all these motions of these things. Like I felt, even let's even backtrack with what I just talked about, right? Like, for example, with some information I found out about this weekend, like I felt betrayed, I felt humiliated, I felt abandoned, and I felt rejected. I felt all four of those things. I haven't even got to the fifth one. I didn't really feel the fifth one, essentially, but those other things, like I felt them in waves in different situations because of the thoughts that I was going through. But being betrayed is a really big one. You can be betrayed, again, by anything, by anyone. But it's dealing with when it started, how it started, why it started that way. If you have issues with that, like let's say for some people, if they're betrayed, they can just be like, you know what? Fucking dust it off. Fuck this fool, him or her. I'm fucking out. Whatever. I don't need this shit. Move on. Whether it's like friends, family, just fucking skirt and move on about your life. But then there's some people, betrayal hits a little bit harder and it sticks with them and they can't let it go. And you're like, dude, like, why can't you let this shit go? It's like, look, it happened already. It's cool. Fuck them. Let them go. And you are like, yeah, dude, I know. I get that. I know that they fucking did that. But it still makes me feel like this. And it's still this, that, and the third. And you're not trying to belittle that or make it like that situation smaller. But it's like, dude, it happened already. But why does this affect you so much? And if that person was to sit there and think, man, maybe it's because of some shit that happened with my parents when I was a kid. Maybe it could stem from like, I don't know, like you were a kid and like one of your homies betrayed you on the playground. And for whatever reason, it was your best friend and it hits you a certain way. And ever since then, you were never able to let shit go. So when you have moments of betrayal in your life that hit really fucking hard, they hit harder than, for example, the way they hit people around you. And it's cool. But again, as Martha was talking about these things, she was talking about these things in the sense that she had been in and out of relationships throughout her entire life up until this one, like her most recent, which she's in the relationship now with this guy, Lewis, right? She realized through all of these things that at the end of it, she ended up in a really bad situation. And basically she ended up locked in a bathroom. And the guy that she was dating at the time was like banging on the door. And he was like trying to get through the door. Essentially, like whatever he was going to do, who knows? And she doesn't even fully know. But she had this moment of realization while she was just sitting in the bathroom, in a locked bathroom. And she was like, how did I end up here? And for a lot of us, I think we can have moments like that, whether it's in a relationship, in your life, in any aspect. You can sit there and you can kind of just be like, how did I even get here? How did this even happen? And like, just what the fuck, right? And for her, when she had that moment of realization, it was that she was the common denominator. Not that she was necessarily the root of all the problems, but that she was the common denominator in them, because she was going after a certain type of guy. And she would look at certain things and ignore all the other flags, which is a constant, right? It's something that's very, very, I guess, prevalent within our culture, especially on social media, is like, what are the red flags? What red flags to look for? And you see like lists of carousels that you can scroll through on like inspirational pages and stuff like that. And it's recognizing that shit, seeing it for what it is, and saying, all right, well, fuck, dude, I'm allowing all of these things to happen to me based on all of the shit that happened to me in the past. Because I was betrayed. Maybe I was humiliated. I was abandoned, rejected. And all of those things have built me into the person that I am right now, because I haven't ever dealt with any of that shit. So now here I am, constantly looking for someone to fill these voids and fill these holes. But those are very, very permanent, or not permanent. They're very, very, like they're the opposite of that. It's just for a little while. That's all it is. They're band-aids. That's all these people do, is like, when you experience these moments, they're band-aids. And then you wonder why the relationship falls apart. That's a part of it, is recognizing that you yourself are a part of the problem because you're allowing these things to happen, right? And then it leads on to the fifth one, the last one, which is injustice. And it can be with anything, right? Like whether you felt, let's say a certain sibling that you have was like treated better than you and you felt it unjust, or you're just constantly used to seeing injustice in your life, whether it was from being a kid on the playground up until just out and about in the world. And granted, today especially, there's so much injustice from just everywhere, every angle, everything that you see, from school shootings to like episodes that happen out in the street, like road rage. You see all this crazy stuff. You have arson, all these wild things, these random attacks, like all of that injustice. Like maybe it affects people a certain way. Or maybe if you experience something in your life, especially in your younger life, and now when you see anything relating to that, it hits you really fucking hard. And it's like, damn, dude, again, just like we were talking about, right? Like, why does this thing hit you so hard? Dude, I don't really know. And then you sit there and you think about it and you're like, yo, as a matter of fact, this shit actually happened to me when I was 12 years old. And now that I think about it, ever since I was 12, this shit has always hit me really, really hard. And I never thought about it like that. And I'm not saying it's like that all the time, and it's going to be like that all the time. But tracking down the roots of these problems, whether it's by yourself, with a therapist, with a friend, a partner, anything like that, it's very important. Because once you have answers and you can correct these things, you can become a better person for yourself. Because you're starting to heal all these wounds that you have. You're starting to just sit there and slowly, like rather than, because they've been open, it's like all these wounds, all these things that you experience leave wounds. And when they're exposed, they get infected. And sometimes that infection spreads and it starts going into all these other things, right? Which is how, as I've been talking to you guys, I'm sure you're getting it, that one connects to another, which can connect to another, which can connect to the next thing. And once that infection spreads to a certain point and it takes over, it's a really ugly thing, man, because you're damaged from so much that no matter what happens, even if the person that comes next in line, whether it's a friend, family, partner, they throw a band-aid on it. Oh, okay, cool. You know what I mean? You're good. You're good. You're good. The bleeding's going to stop. Everything's going to be fine. Maybe for a little bit, because those bandages are going to get soaked up. They got to get changed out. And eventually those other people are going to get tired of having to sit there and put bandages all the time, because it's not their responsibility. That's the whole thing. It's very fucking important for you guys to remember that. It's not your partner, your friend, your mom, your dad. It's not anyone's responsibility to heal the wounds. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to sit there and be like, yo, I'm hurt. I'm hurting. This shit has affected me and I need to figure it out. Because again, with you taking control of that and you taking reign of it, nobody can take that from you. No one's going to take that healing from you. And no one's going to be able to cause that sort of pain anymore, because you have a different kind of grasp on it. And once you have that sort of grasp, it's the most groundbreaking thing, because you feel almost invincible, because you're able to heal yourself and you kind of feel, you just feel super strong because you feel grounded again. And maybe for a long time you didn't. Maybe for a long time you fell off because you have all these wounds. They're just open. You're bleeding out. But once you sit there, you know, you start to get sutures and you're closing everything up and the infection starts to go away. It takes time, right? This shit doesn't happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. And for me, it's really hard. I'm a very impatient person. I want results right now. Right now. Yesterday. Where the fuck? Why isn't this happening yet? And I know, especially on my healing journey, I want results right now. And granted, have I seen certain things? Yes. And I'm sure even you guys, as I talk to you and the more that I experience to kind of go down this road, you can probably get certain things too, where it's like, oh, damn, dude, like that's crazy. Yeah, I can see him like changing up, saying certain things that he didn't used to say a certain way. And maybe, you know, he's looking at it a little bit different now. But that's my process, because I'm trying to heal my wounds, because I never realized how many of these wounds that I had. And even as she was talking about all this stuff yesterday, like Martha in the podcast I was watching, at the beginning, I was so quick, for example, to point certain things on my partner at the time. And then I realized how much of those things I was also battling with myself. And that the way that I've even told you guys before, that you have to remember, it's you and your partner versus the problem, not you and your partner versus each other. And for some of these things that I was talking about, it ended up putting us in situations where it felt like it was me versus her and her versus myself. And that was wrong. It shouldn't have happened that way. And how was I supposed to know, right? I wasn't in this space. I wasn't doing certain things. I'm not saying it's my fault. I'm not saying that. But do I apologize for certain situations that I had possibly put myself into, or maybe not without knowing that I got myself into? Of course, because it's fucked up. And I hate that my partner had even gone through these things and have experienced this sort of like injustice, betrayal, humiliation, abandonment, rejection, that she experienced all this shit, because it hurts me that the person that I love the most had experienced this type of shit. And I remember, you know, we would have certain conversations and I would find out certain things. I would lose it. I would get so upset because I couldn't fucking believe it. I'm like, what do you mean this person did this shit to you? What do you mean you experienced this type of shit? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because let's say I hadn't experienced it, but my reaction with those situations is from somewhere, right? Like, I do have a major issue with injustice, especially within my own ecosystem, within my family, because I witnessed a lot of shit from when I was a kid, watching my grandma get abused and dealing with all kinds of craziness within that realm. So when I hear people that I love talk about certain things that have affected them a certain way, it drives me nuts. Like, I want to fucking lose it. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I want to do something. And that's not right, right? Because then I'm letting something from my past sort of take over, and I'm making a certain situation like, fuck, how can I fix it? And that's not what it's supposed to be. And that's not how it should be. We have to be strong enough ourselves and go through the motions. That way we can heal these things, because it's important. It's super fucking important. And it will help us to be a little more complete for ourselves. Because again, if you can heal, if you can do what you got to do for you, you're going to be a better person for everybody around you. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Everything that you do to improve yourself is amazing. Whether it's small steps, big steps, anything like that. Everything pays off with it. So as she was finishing this part up, I'm sitting there, I'm taking more notes. And something that her partner had asked her in the, like, after all they had gone through these things, right? These 5, he had asked her, why do women not like the nice guy, but they'll go for a man that has likes and interests, but doesn't have a healthy relationship with himself? And her response fucked me up. Like, I had to rewind it and watch it probably 3 or 4 times. Not that obviously I didn't hear it, but every time I heard it, it was just like, like I was getting hit every single time, because that shit was crazy, because I recognized and I related to it in a certain way. And her response was, because, and this goes for men and women, but I'm just saying this is what her response was, is that they're looking for love as a wounded child versus looking for love as an adult who's self-aware and going through the healing process, because it's a lifelong process. And again, I'm going to read that one more time. So it's the fact that the person is looking for love as a wounded child versus looking for love as an adult who is self-aware and going through the healing process, because it's a lifelong process. Dude, that shit fucked me up so bad. And I'm sure even as I read it both times, you guys are probably like, oh, damn. Because we don't think about it this way. We've never been taught to think about it this way, to look at it this way, to shift our lens. Because all of the shit that we deal with, the way we are, the way we act, it comes from somewhere. And it can be childhood trauma. It can be trauma that just happened. It doesn't have to be from your childhood. It can be something that happened yesterday that was insane, that fucked you up. So when I read this, I was like, damn, dude. Because I realized for myself, especially throughout my relationships and even friendships, that I was looking for these things and at these things from the perspective of a wounded child. Because as kids, we don't know how to deal with it. And for myself, like, I was an only child. I didn't have anybody to deal with it. Like, it was just me, myself, and I. It was me, my imagination. That's why with some of the people that are in my life a lot more active and like that are closer to me, they trip out because they're like, dude, why do you have such a wild imagination? Like, how can you make up these stories and like you can go about it? Like, how do you do this? And it's like, whether I'm telling jokes or something, or like, you know, anything like that, I'm like, dude, it's because it's all I had. All I had was myself. So I would have to go through the motions and talk myself down out of situations and make stories and do these things in my head, because I had to transport myself sometimes. I had to transport myself somewhere else in my head. Whether it was like, let's say a movie that I saw, you know, I would take myself to a certain place in that film and just kind of, and go through these motions. But again, I was coming from, and I'm still doing that now, and I'm working on this process, is coming at the relationship, especially relationships, I should say, not even relationship, but relationships. Now I'm trying to look at them from the lens of an adult who's going through this healing process, because I am. And it's going to take time. And whoever steps into my life, be it a friend, be it family that I haven't connected with in a long time, or a romantic partner, that they understand where I'm at and that they can respect it and recognize me as a person. And that you know, the conversations that we have, that it's like, I'm looking for a specific thing or specific things, and not even just one thing, but things that I need as an adult. Because now that I'm going through this process, I realize that my needs and wants have definitely changed. My priorities have definitely changed 110,000%. especially in the recent, because of all kinds of circumstances, right? Whether it's like my family, whether it's professionally, because I've had to deal with all of these things head on. So as she was talking about this with her partner on this podcast, it hit home a certain way. And I really had to share it with you guys, because I always try and like think of the topics and what I'm going to talk about like a little bit early, so I have an idea and I can kind of just go about it in my head, have like rough conversations with how I'm going to navigate it. But I was having a rough time this week, and I was almost at the point of not doing a cast this week just because there was too much going on. But when I heard this one thing, and well, not even one thing, because it was everything as a whole, but this specific subject, when this conversation hit, it hit me a certain way. And because of that, that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. So I hope that this process, and even just this little section of that it's like, it's very helpful for you, because it's been helpful for me. And honestly, I'll probably watch that episode back. I'll probably watch it back today. Maybe I'll watch it back tomorrow. But like either way, I will watch it back for sure, because it was able to give me so much. And I realized as I've watched, listened, and heard certain things, it's like watching a video, like a funny video, right? And it gets funnier every time. It's the same thing with videos like this. Like every time I watch it, listen, anything like that, it hits me different every time, or I'll pick up on something different every single time. And I can either take mental notes, I'll pull out my notepad on my phone. If I'm on my computer, I'll sit there, pull it out. So it's like, I need to write this shit down, because all of these things help me. And again, the whole point of this is in service. I think it's very important. If you're going to do something, if it can help somebody, then sick, get it out. Help somebody. Let this one shit, sprinkle it somewhere and let it grow. Sprinkle this somewhere, let it grow. Like plant as many seeds as possible. Because eventually what I think every one of us should strive to do, and this is again just my personal opinion, I think we should all strive to have a beautiful garden in our life. And no one's going to grow that garden for you. People can help you, but they're not going to, like, let's say they're going to help you get to the planters that you need to get to, but they're not going to force you to sit there, put the seeds down and water it every single day. They're not going to do that for you. You have to do that. You have to put in that work. So the more that I listen to these types of things, they help me so that I can get my gardening tools, because that's what I'm gathering right now. And I'm starting to plant my seeds in different places, and I'm watching the plants grow. And granted, some are growing faster than others, for sure. But that's part of the process. The garden's going to grow at different times, different things. Different flowers grow differently, right? Some need more light than others. And that's how a lot of it is right now, is I'm trying to figure out what to put in front of the window, what to put outdoors, what to keep in the shade a little bit more so that it can nourish. And I want you guys to do the same thing, is like know where to put your time, know where to put your energy, your love, protect all those things. Because if you can grow your garden a certain way, somebody's going to notice that. Whether, again, it has nothing to do with, or I'm not specifically talking about romantically. This can be any relationship, friendship. Somebody's going to walk past your garden and say, hey, I like those flowers right there. Like, how'd you do that? And you never know. All of a sudden, it's a lifelong bond, whether it's romantic or not. Or maybe family turns around and says, man, how'd you do that? Hey, let me show you. Like, walk over here with me. Let me talk to you for a minute. So gather your tools, because it's important. It's important. You got to remember that shit. And another thing that she touched on that I felt was really important, the both of them touched on within this podcast, is love languages. And love languages, man, that's a tough one. It's a tough one, but there's 5. I'm going to run through them real quick with you guys. So there's words of affirmation, 1, acts of service, 2, 3, receiving gifts, 4, quality time, and 5, physical touch. We all communicate in different ways. And there's a lot of people who also are against this, and they say that love languages are all bullshit. They say it's like, because we can all use them to a certain degree, and we can, for sure. So I understand where one side's coming from, saying like, oh, this is bullshit. And then there's the other side that's like, oh, nah, dude, it's real because it this, and this, right? And the argument with that too also is like, no, it's just the human need to have to categorize and put something in a box. And granted, I get that because, okay, we could all use all of those things, but some of us more than others. And again, where do those things come from? Unresolved traumas. See what I mean? Like, this all connects. Everything that is being talked about connects in some way, and not just like in a cyclical motion. I'm talking about like a spider web that's already made up, that you can go from one point of the web to literally across the web, a different point, but it's still connected. It's still somewhere, right? Like words of affirmation. Maybe you need the words of affirmation because of being rejected. Maybe you need it because you were abandoned. Maybe you were humiliated at one point. And having those words of affirmation helps you deal with that. Acts of service. Maybe you want people to cater to you a certain way. Why? Because maybe you were missing that. Maybe you didn't have it, so you need it to feel loved because you weren't cared for that way, and it's something that you want. It's so crazy how these things connect that way, though, because we don't think about it. And I'm not saying that you have to recognize these things and share these with the people that you love in your life, but is it important to keep that in mind? Yes. And this is the type of thing I would definitely say is more in line with romantic relationships, but it can also go for your other relationships too. But I would definitely say within the romantic space, this is very important to understand. And I would, again, the 5, I would not study them, but just keep an eye out, because especially now in today's day and age with dating and relationships, being self-aware is so important. Self-awareness is insanely attractive because it's showing people that you're aware of yourself, and you can turn around and say, yeah, this is what I need. Knowing what you need and what you want are beautiful because you leave no space for muddy water. When you get into a relationship with somebody, it's you constantly, in my opinion, having to keep the water clear. It's not about like shuffling your feet at the bottom so that the dirt can kick up, because sometimes when you kick it up too much, it takes a long time for that dust to settle. It takes a long time, and sometimes it never fully does. And that's what you don't want to happen. And I'm not saying that knowing your love languages is going to clear that shit up, because it won't. But mark my fucking words, it will help in some way. Because maybe you notice that you need to be touched. Maybe you want your partner to hold you. Maybe you want to hold their hand. Maybe you want to feel loved in that way. You need that sort of physical recognition. Maybe you need quality time. It's okay to share that with your partner. And it's nice to be able to do that. Like, when people ask you like, oh, like what means a lot to you? Like, what are something that you're looking for in your relationship? You have answers. Not having the answers is the problem. Because when you say you don't know, what are you even doing? Why are you even entertaining a relationship if you don't even know fully what you want? Or what you're trying to receive in the relationship? What you're trying to give in the relationship? You got to have these answers, right? So going through all of these again, you have words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, physical touch. Those types of things, recognizing them and sharing them with your partner are important. Because once you can do that, you understand also how to recognize these things in other people. Oh, you know what? My partner likes receiving gifts. But I'm not just talking about like let's say from my perspective, right? If I'm dating a girl who likes nice things, it's one thing that she likes nice things. But if she likes receiving gifts, it's something that I have to know. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, it has to be a $10,000 Birkin bag. Like, that's not what we're talking about. Maybe it's the act of receiving a gift, whether it's a flower, or maybe she's really into crystals and you get her a crystal, and it doesn't matter the cost of it. It's the idea and the act of giving something to somebody, that you thought about it, that you put your heart into something, and they're like, hey, I thought of you when I saw this. This is for you. So doing stuff like that is important. And again, being able to recognize those things in other people, because the more that you educate yourself, you're giving yourself the tools that you need. Again, not just to recognize it in you, but to see around you. man, I never really thought about it. You know what? Now that I think about it, whenever I'm with this person, quality time really means a lot to them. I notice that they're not on their phone at all. They're really in the conversation and they're looking like into my eyes, and we talk and we laugh. And I also notice that they like to be next to me. When we go to the store, when we walk around, they hook into my arm and they just kind of sit with me. Or they like to be, let's say you're pushing the cart, right? And the person likes to be in front of you in the cart just because they want to be with you. Being able to recognize those things and not just look at them as like, you're just doing it to be cute. Like, I notice you do this a lot and it's because you need it. This is how you want to be loved. And recognizing those sorts of things are very important. And again, I say primarily in romantic relationships, but this also goes with homies too, because I have friends, for example, I have quite a few friends that over the years, and especially in the recent, like in the past couple months since I started my journey, that I've noticed a lot of these things with these love languages. I know who to act or which language to put with certain people. Like I have certain friends, it's quality time, heavy. That's what they, over everything else, they don't want a gift. They don't want anything. They want your time. And like, okay, a prime example of that, my buddy Izzy. We talked about this before. And for him, something very important, a very, very important love language for him is quality time. He lives far away. Not super far, but far enough where it's maybe like an hour, hour and a half or so. And for him, it's like, hey, dude, come kick it. Like, I really want to see you. Okay. Let's say I roll out there, I take a bottle. Hey, dude, here. He could care less about that. He could care less about any of it because for him, it's the time. It's the fact that I'm there with him and I'm spending the time with him and that we can talk and that we can laugh. And it's because those moments and quality time means a lot to him because he's dealt with a lot, especially in the last year with losing his mom, losing his grandma, and having to deal with it all in his head. And granted, he has an amazing partner and they're dealing with life together, but he's going through it alone. So when he gets moments of time to have quality time, it means everything over anything in the world. So I recognize stuff like that with him. I recognize the same thing with other friends. I have other homies that, for example, thrive with words of affirmation. And I constantly tell them, I'll check up on them. Hey, you know what? What's good with you? How you doing? Oh, this is that and the third. Hey, you got it. Hey, you fucking got it. You got this shit. Don't stress about nothing. Or I see them, let's say they post a selfie and, you know, they don't really post selfies too much. Post a selfie. They're feeling good. Let's say they got an interview or something. Reply back. Hey, you look fucking good. Go get that shit, girl. Like, this is you. Like, you go, girl. Go get it. I see one of my boys up there. I'm like, you go, boy. Go get that shit. This is you. You feeling good today? You about to go to a party? You got something going on? Post a little picture of yourself. You know, like, I like that. Hey, you look good. I feel it. Run it. Because certain people, again, thrive with different love languages. And it's important for you to recognize them. Because it shows that you care. It shows that you love a different way. Because you're taking it one more step. It's not just about knowing it for yourself. When you know it for yourself and you have the tools and you can open that toolbox up and you're like, all right, I know what to do. This is crazy. This person likes this. This person likes that. It makes you feel very fulfilled. And it's a beautiful thing. A beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. So it's something that I've realized, and I've been very fortunate to experience these things and to have the opportunity to learn these tools and to study and expand myself this way. And it's going to be an ongoing process. I'll probably be doing this for the rest of my life. But it's a journey that I don't mind taking. And it's a journey I don't mind being on because it's making me a better version of myself. I can be more present. I can be more loving. I can be more accepting, more understanding than I've ever been in my entire life. So I hope that through this process that you guys go with, because I mean, you guys are on the journey with me too. I like to think you guys are on the journey with me too. That's why, as much as I feel alone when I do these podcasts, I don't feel alone. And I know it sounds kind of like, what do you mean, bro? Like, it's you in a room and I'm talking to a camera right now, but I'm also not, because I'm talking to you guys. This is you. It's y'all, it's my supporters, it's my friends, it's my family. So all the shit that I deal with, like, I'm not alone. Even if I do feel alone in my darkest time, like, it's not that way. And we got to remember that. But again, with the right tools, it helps us to remember shit like that. So I really appreciate your guys' love, your time, your support. And I know I do it on every episode, and I'm going to do it on every episode because it's important for me to remind you guys, because that's what this is. It's something that we're kind of all taking this walk together. And I'm going to constantly thank you for being here and constantly thank you for supporting me, because without it, it would just be me talking to a camera. No big deal. And the fact that homies take the time out of their days, their schedules, whether they're driving to work, at work, chilling at the house, whatever, and listening to it, it's wild. Like, I just recently reconnected with one of my cousins, Melissa, and we used to be really close, like when we were a lot younger, and we vibed really heavy with like music and stuff like that. And that was one of the primary reasons why her and I were so close, because at a certain point in time when I was younger, nobody fucked with me in the family because I was just like a black sheep. I was different. The music I listened to was different. I was listening to like hardcore and stuff, and no one really fucked with it. But she did, and her brothers did, and my other cousins did. So when she kind of brought me in that side, that's what made us so close, was like just the arts and a certain part of art that brought us together. And we disconnected for a while and then recently reconnected. And her and her man, it's tight because they both listen to this podcast. And like her man, bless her, is like starting from the jump. Because I told him, I was like, oh, dude, when I ran into them a couple weeks ago at a family party, I was like, bro, listen to like, check out the more recent ones. He's like, no, man, that's not how I do it. I'm going to run it back from one and come up to the current because I want to know what's going on. He's like, as much as I want to know what's happening to you right now, Rob, he's like, I want to see the progression of the podcast, because I'm sure even with you guys, you notice, for example, now in episode 12 is very different from episode 1. And I'm very happy that it's progressed the way that it has. Like, I don't regret anything. I don't like nothing. I think I love it, but I do notice the change. Everything's kind of switched up, and it's fucking sick the way it's progressed. And all of you have been there. Those of you who've listened since episode 1, again, thank you. Those of you who just started listening and you just listened to last week's episode, sick. Fucking thank you too. Like, this is rad, because now you're jumping in on this part of the journey, and we're going to just keep going. But seeing that sort of progression, and again, having support from people like that, like my cousin, her man, and being able to connect with people in a different way is sick. Because there's a lot of friends that really listen to this shit and they're like, damn, bro, like I didn't know you went through something like that. And I would have never thought. And that's what gets me the most, is when I get things like that. Like, damn, bro, like I had no idea you were dealing with depression. I had no idea you had just gone through a breakup and that it fucking wrecked you. Like, I had no fucking idea. Zero. Because I wouldn't guess that. When I seen you, like, you seem happy and you're smiling and shit, but you're really going through it. And that's a part of this process, is just being more and more and more vulnerable, because through being more vulnerable, it allows me to open up a different part of myself that was already there. And it's not that I didn't know existed, but it's tight to be able to grow in that way and just be like, oh, okay, cool. Again, going back to the garden reference, like that I'm noticing in these areas I didn't really pay attention to, that I've been watering without even me knowing it. So I'm watching these flowers grow in different places. I'm like, damn, this is crazy. Because my garden didn't used to look like that. It really didn't used to look like that. It was in a very different place. And everything was like, I'm not going to say rotting, but certain things were dying in a very, very rapid manner. And there was other places that were just bare. I couldn't even lay down seeds because I didn't even know what to do or how to get there or how to get seeds so I can start my planting process. But with where I am and where things have gone, that's where it's put me in a place now that I can sit there and I can reach into a bag of seeds and just kind of put it here, put it there, put some water down, and again, know where to put things. So it's really rad. And again, I appreciate you guys for coming on this journey with me. And I appreciate you for watching this episode. And I hope that you guys can take something from it. And hopefully for the next one, I can continue to do that. and continue to keep giving you guys little bits and pieces so that you can kind of float throughout life and also spread the message too, because maybe this will trigger you to have a conversation with a friend that you've never had a conversation before, like anything deep like that. And then maybe that will trigger that person to have a deep conversation with a friend, family, partner, and so on and so forth. And it's like, hey, how come you did this? Oh shit, man. One time I was listening to this one thing and it got me thinking. And that's what this is to get you thinking. Maybe something about you didn't really think about before. And of course, as we are starting to do together, is before I end every episode, I like to give a piece of advice or some sort of like a quote, read you guys something that can leave you guys thinking and possibly start a conversation. And the thing that I heard was at the end of this podcast that I was watching yesterday. And it basically went along the line. I kind of have to like summarize it in a way, because it's like it's just a weird concept. Not weird, but like it's a concept. So I have to like find a way to kind of say it. And I guess the best way to say it is to not die with your music in you. And the story around that basically comes from, like, long story short, is there's this man. He's an older man and he's on his deathbed. He's a musician, very, very talented, very, decorated. And he's there, he's sitting in his deathbed, he's laying down, and he's dying, right? And the person who's there with him, he says to come close, essentially, like, I need to tell you something. And he talks about that the fact that there's so many melodies and so many pieces of music that he wished that he could have written, and that he regrets not having written and not having expressed. And it's sad because, the man is on his deathbed. There's nothing he can do. So all these beautiful things that are in his head, nobody will ever know what they are. No one will ever hear it. No one will ever experience it. They'll know what the person's created, but there's so much more beauty that was in there that for one reason or another never got created. So basically what this stems down to, you guys, is if you have something inside of you that you want to express, that you want to let out, explore that, let it out. Because the last thing you want to do in life is, one, have any regrets, and two, just to feel that sort of unfulfillment, like that you didn't do what you really wanted. So this type of thing reminds you to do that, to not hold back, let it out, write these things, express yourself, let your music out. Because it's the most beautiful thing you can do, is share it with everybody around you. Some people might laugh. Who gives a shit? In all honesty. Because at the end of the day, you're doing it for you. And shame on people who make people feel that way. You post something, and let's say for whatever reason someone write, oh, this is shit. Let's say you make a video or something. You want to try reels. Let's put it with something that we all know right now. Let's say you want to make a reel. You go, you're really happy with it, and then you get some hater ass fool comes in and comments and said, this is stupid. Like, what? This is so whack. Or the music doesn't work. Or the way you edited it was dumb. It's like, fuck people like that. Like, literally fuck them. The most unhappy motherfuckers on the planet. And they just gotta go and hate on people because they got their own insecurities to deal with. Who knows? Maybe it's shit like we talked about, right? Unresolved traumas. They gotta go handle that. But they're taking it out on you. But it makes you happy. And you know what? At the end of the day, as long as you feel like, I expressed myself, I wanted to make something and I did it. And the next one, I'm going to do it even better. Because if, let's say you let that get to you, maybe the next one that you made is going to be incredible. But you never let that music get written. Because you never expressed it. Because somebody dimmed that light for you. And you let them dim that light. Fuck that bullshit. Get out. Express yourself in any way, shape, or form. I'm not saying it has to be a video or a picture or something, but express yourself because it's beautiful. Make sure every ounce of you that you're constantly letting it out, because that's what we gotta be. We gotta be ourselves 110% of the time. And sometimes, you might want to dim it down depending on the situation that you're in, but be you and let out that light, let out that music because it's beautiful. it is so, so, so beautiful to let out those pieces. And you will start to grow and express yourself differently because of that, because you're coming out of your comfort zone. You're like coming out of your cocoon, you know, you're starting to sprout out. You're going to be a butterfly soon. So it's shit like that that's really important to remember. So I hope that that little bit can give you guys something, and hopefully it sparks a conversation and you can carry it with you. So I appreciate you guys once again. Thank you so much. I love you, sending you good vibes, all the good things. And I will definitely catch you on the next one.